Order in the courtroom. All right, so you are being charged with saying Shane Dawson wasn't that racist, saying that's to mean something is bad, dropping several N-bombs, and saying that idubbz had some good points on Twitter in 2015. How do you plead? Okay, and jury, what say you for the punishment? Electric chair, life in prison, mass unfollow, a 2-week probation from the podcast. If you are over the age of 6 months, then you've probably had the pleasure of witnessing, there's a lot of glare, at least one of your faves getting canceled in the last couple months. You've also had the pleasure of seeing Blake Lively get canceled for being the most off-putting part of a Colleen Hoover novel. Now, I'm not here to overtly judge you or try to police your feelings. Finding out that someone that you like might be a horrible person is a really hard thing to go through. It's not always easy just letting go of the things you like once you find out your fave is terrible. All of us still have some songs in our playlists that probably shouldn't be there. And listen, in college, I took one sociology class, so now I am clued in on human behavior. I observe y'all like goo under a microscope. What I find super interesting and something that I wanted to talk about and discuss with y'all is not so much who we cancel or why we cancel them, but more so how we cancel them. It's just been interesting to watch the cancellation and inevitable resurrection of so many creators here online. I find it interesting the apologies that we accept and that we don't accept, the certain people that we've kind of made a martyr of, and those who we haven't. So the way I want to go through this is kind of talk about some of my favorite cancellations, some of the more recent cancellations that we've seen, how we've done with those cancellations, and if there is a right and wrong way to go about it. And I think I'm gonna surprise you with who I bring up in this video and who I want to compare and contrast. Because two people in recent history that I kind of want to compare are Fannita and Brooke Schofield, and in less recent history, Jenna and idubbz. So I want to serve them to you like a Pokemon card. Like I just want to give you a rundown of who they are and their stats. But I am gonna thoroughly walk you through how they've been canceled and why, and go from there. So the first Pokemon is Fannita. She has about 2 million followers on TikTok, had a podcast, and for a long time has really been like an internet fave. However, she did recently go through a cancellation, and her cancellation was kind of incremental, I would say. It didn't happen very suddenly. I feel like it kind of started with this clip.
This is gonna sound really mean, but I promise I'm not a mean girl, even though some people think I am. I don't think everyone's beautiful. Like, some people are ugly and that's fine.
Which seemed to continue this narrative that had already existed online about her being a mean girl. And then it was kind of preceded by several different moments and different TikToks. It kind of started with a TikTok about pay discrepancy between black and white creators, and she compared the money that she was making to another white creator who was making way more. And a lot of people online felt that the comparison wasn't fair because a lot of people feel that that white creator is just doing very different content. Then it kind of went into her talking about her feelings about her audience and how she feels like people treat her very differently now since she's had her weight loss surgery, particularly about how much worse she felt like she was treated before. There was essentially a chunk of TikToks that were more or less showing her disdain for large chunks of her audience because of how they treated her before and after her weight loss. And I think the biggest issue people had with her was less what she said and more so her delivery.
Well, it's because I fucking hate y'all. What? You can't say that. You hate us? I absolutely can. The reason a lot of y'all don't like me is because I'm an anomaly.
Because in her delivery, she kind of like insulted certain people, called certain people broke, and people thought it was a little bit hypocritical for her to be calling people broke, and then also just starting her Twitch stream and asking people to like subscribe. The chunks of her rant that also called people broke and ugly, etc., people kind of started to feel like she was attacking people in her audience. The response to those videos were a lot of people believing that she was crashing out. However, she has taken down all of those videos, and she has made apologies, she has clarified what she meant, she has attempted to reconcile a lot of what she said. She spoke about being in a very negative headspace and was basically just working through a lot of emotions. Now this is Alix, wait, no, this is Brooke Schofield. I'm getting confused with my notes because I think Alix is being canceled right now for the same thing as Brooke. There's so much racism to talk about. But I do think she's most widely known for doing Canceled with Tana, and her cancellation seemed a lot more swift than Fannita's. I don't think it was kind of this slow decline of like several TikToks that just kept rubbing people the wrong way over the span of several months like Fannita's was. It feels like it was kind of one fell swoop where some tweets popped up. Basically, she had some old racist tweets get dug up. Some basic run-of-the-mill anti-Trayvon Martin rhetoric, you know, your everyday run-of-the-mill racism. It always kind of blows my mind that like influencers don't think to circle back on their past social media when they start blowing up. Genuinely speaking, I feel like if you have more than 50,000 followers on anything and your Twitter is more than 10 years old, you should just delete it. And I think because her cancellation was a lot faster, her apology came also very quickly. She said she's sorry several times, replied to some comments. I think she even donated some money. She said reparations. And she spoke about how basically she didn't really start unlearning racism until she was in university, which is a little bit late, I can't lie. And she gave us some of her backstory, basically saying she grew up in the Bible Belt with racist grandparents. So, nothing new. Now it's the aftermath of all these cancellations that I want to discuss and frankly ask y'all about, because it's the punishment for the crimes that honestly caught my attention more than anything else. Now, before we pass judgment, obviously, we have to take into account what they did to be able to assign the correct punishment. We have to be fair, just like the real justice system is. But you know what I think might be the biggest but also most underlying part of the equation that impacts how we punish people? I think it's who was offended versus who their audience is. Listen, you guys, 10 years ago, I said some really insensitive things about birds, and I am so sorry. We forgive you. Birds are just too sensitive these days. Listen, 10 years ago, I said some really awful things about birds, and I am so sorry. What did you say about birds? You guys are not as forgiving as my last audience was. Brooke seemed to have been sentenced to a temporary break from her podcast, but most of her core audience on TikTok seemed to desperately want her back. Fannita's sentence seems to be more overall less engagement, and those people who do engage with her seem to dislike her quite a bit. Now, I do believe that Fannita will be able to bounce back from this and keep going. Like, I truly don't believe canceling someone is a permanent thing, but I have noticed that I do feel like her sentence has lasted a lot longer than Brooke's. And here's why I think that is. And this is just my opinion. I feel like Brooke's comments didn't offend her core audience. Brooke's crime was being racist 10 years ago. I think the fact that a lot of Brooke's audience are probably young white women just like herself, I think overwhelmingly the majority of them also aren't black. Brooke's audience can acknowledge that what she did was offensive, but I don't think they were personally offended by it. I think if she had said something that was more pick-me, more misogyny, more anti-woman, she would have had a harder pushback. And I think that's the reason a lot of white creators can always bounce back from racism. Also because of the fact that, like I said, they weren't personally offended, so I think it could be just a lot easier to move past something your favorite creator did when it wasn't actually about you. I don't know if that's true, and I didn't have a racism phase. But I think that's why Fannita's comments would hit a lot closer to home and actually personally offend a lot of people in her audience. Because I think she probably had a lot more black fans, a lot more young fans, a lot more poor fans, a lot more women fans. So her comments could have personally offended a lot of people in her audience. Another big thing I think that was different is the quick cancel versus the slow burn cancel. I feel like there had been more a buildup of negative feelings towards Fannita before her big cancel that I'm not sure that I saw with Brooke. And for some reason, I do feel like we can forgive a big cancel quicker than a slow burn cancel. Because I think with a slow burn cancel, you end up hemorrhaging chunks of your audience over time that might just take a way longer time to come around and find you again and forgive you. Versus with a big cancel, I feel like you kind of just deal with the explosion, put out the fire, and you can bounce back a lot easier. And obviously, there's an elephant in this room. The big difference is that Fannita is black. I just don't want to make it seem like her being black and a woman is not a meaningful part of how she's being treated online as well. And having gotten familiar with what Fannita did and being familiar with what Brooke did, if they were the last two creators on earth, I'd probably be watching Fannita. I'm sorry. I can forgive someone calling me broke and ugly easier than anything Brooke ever said. And I know I scared you at the beginning, comparing idubbz and Jenna marbles. I know I got y'all sick to your stomachs with that one, but I'm gonna do it. But the reason why I find those two so interesting is because I genuinely believe they kind of canceled themselves. Jenna, a couple years ago, made a video unprompted apologizing for problematic things that she's done in the past. I think that she had apologized for her Jenna's ghetto salon bit and also some of her songs that she did in the past using that were just saying some racist things towards Asian people in it. Now, the interesting confusing part of her apology was she wasn't being canceled yet. She got ahead of it and kind of dipped. She held herself accountable and kind of just skedaddled. And idubbz is kind of similar because despite the fact that a lot of people had known for a really long time that his video essays about why it's okay to use slurs were bad, huge chunks of his audience heavily defend him to this day. A lot of them think it wasn't that bad because, like I said before, the people he was actually harming with his videos are not his primary audience. So his apology wasn't really necessary for most of his audience. They didn't care. He just kind of did it. He quite literally just discovered empathy and decided to apologize for it. Is it about a decade too late? Sure. Has he already deeply traumatized every black kid that was in high school during those times? Of course. You kind of like remember exactly where you were when that video dropped. You get like war flashbacks. However, the reason I want to bring them up is because they're still very much loved and supported by their fans. I think, if anything, their preemptive cancel, their apologies that weren't even asked for, kind of ended up martyrizing them. Now, I do not hate Miss Jenna Marbles. However, I think that she would have eventually gotten canceled for those videos. I think no one had dug deep enough yet into her past, but I feel very strongly that it would have come eventually. Everyone loved Miss Jenna, and I think everyone still loves her, but I think her preemptive apology is a big part of that. I genuinely think if she had left it alone much longer, the internet would have caught up with her. Because I do think that being able to look back at yourself and apologize before anyone is even asking you to do so is meaningful. And I also do think it's meaningful that idubbz apologized, even when most of his audience literally didn't give a f. Some of them even went above and beyond to make videos saying he shouldn't have even apologized. People who the apology was not directed to made a video saying why they shouldn't have made the apology. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. You don't need to apologize. I want to make abundantly clear, this is never any hate to Jenna Marbles. This is just an observation, all right? A yap, some might say. So what is the point of this video and what is the wrap up? The correct way to get canceled is to cancel yourself first. And that, my friends, is the video. Thank you so much for watching. Me and the most uncancelable audience that you could ever ask for are grateful that you watched. Now, I will admit, I wrote this video completely as an opinion piece. So if you think I missed anything, if you have any feelings and opinions on anything I said, please do let me know down in the comments, respectfully. Don't be rude. And of course, if you've made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.